of ethnic differences and duplication of ethno-nationalist logic by another means. So the usage, and I'll get back to this a bit more when I talk about the platform of Frutas Hominic and the Matins of Association intervention. But the usage, for instance, in the work of ICMP of various blinding technologies is in a complex, containment intervention mode. That's how international security development complex work. Either we contain the conflict or its affect, or we intervene. Containment intervention. So, that's the logic that international politics has been operating in the last decades. Let's say in the modern period, when it comes to humanitarian intervention, especially. So what basically, in the work of ICMP, we see lots of these so-called blinding technologies, to blind, to be neutral, not to see, in these codes the ethnic difference, but this is just a facade, and I'll explain, what actually, happens. In the end, what we have is something that reinforces identitarian and exclusionary politics of collectivity, and, which remains quite blind to the politics, of hope that, I see in certain instances of art production, for instance, or activism. And this affirmative politics or affirmative political imaginaries, they take on board immediately and fully what is really important, and those are political origins of violence, the political causes and effects of trauma and atrocity. And just to clarify, this is not to diminish in any way the tremendous work of ICMP, in delivering some small measure of justice to the families of the missing or peace, because they return the mortal remains of their loved ones to the family, or the fact that, for instance, in its daily operation, ICMP staff, especially local staff, navigate the aporias and paradoxes of witnessing to trauma through various gestures, trying to cover quite a lot of problems that actually permeate the work of ICMP. For instance, they work on mass graves, they work on families, but they have no psychosocial support, no debriefings, nothing, and even local staff are just left there, to burn out, and they do. So, I just briefly go through the ICMP fact sheet and, ask some questions about, these tasks. Number one, science in service of truth and justice, forensic sciences. So, and this is what it says. Forensic Science Department has the primary responsibility within ICMP for developing, implementing, and managing the technical process of assisting governments in exhumations, examinations, and identifications of persons missing as a result of violent conflicts in the region of the former Yugoslavia, where the FSD incorporates the use of a population-based, DNA-led system of identifications, which requires the collection and profiling of blood samples from family members with missing relatives and bone samples from exhumed mortal remains. So the ICMP identification process is subject to quality assurance and quality control mechanisms and to external review. The FSD is organized into 3 divisions. 1.1, telling the story of a mass grave, Exhumations and Examinations Program, E&E. The E&E is predominantly involved in the detection of sites, the recovery and anthropological and examination of mortal remains, and in the use of scientific methods to compare ante-mortem and post-mortem records for forensic identification. 1.2, a profile of the missing, the Identification Coordination Center, ICC. The ICC is responsible for the collection of blood samples from families with missing relatives, the preparation of bone samples for DNA extraction, administration of the DNA matching software, the production and archiving of DNA reports, and the archiving of biological samples. 1.3, irrefutable evidence of identity, DNA laboratories. The DNA Labs program is responsible for extracting DNA from biological samples, for profiling, obtaining the unique code from DNA, and for generating and reviewing DNA reports in an effort to identify mortal remains. In addition, DNA scientists are involved in R&D activities, research and development activities, to reduce costs and to improve the identification process. So there is the second part, where basically discuss about public involvement and civil society initiatives, how this all is connected to peace, post-conflict institution building, peace initiatives, reconciliation, and so forth. Especially through the support, through the associations of family members. And then number 3, special projects. 3.1, mapping a genocide. The Forensic Database Management System, FDMS, and I'll talk about this in more detail. The FDMS is an electronic database of ICMP forensic science activities that tracks the process of exhumations and identifications from reconnaissance and exhumation to identification, notification and burial. ICMP has provided user access of this database to governments in the former Yugoslavia and in Iraq. And also elsewhere. So, paths to reconciliation, European Union campaign, and so forth. Finally, finding long-term solutions, institution building, where they try to, set up this Missing Persons Institute and put it to collapse. In the last decades, they tried that. They began in 2000, but it's not operative and it's not functional. So when we talk about this mass identification of persons missing as a result of violent conflicts in the region of former Yugoslavia and globally, as it is done by the International Commission on Missing Persons, we see that it's core technology of social repair, circles around, social repair of sociality and locality in former Yugoslavia, circles around these cutting-edge forensic, anthropological, DNA and bioinformatical technologies. So ICMP's technology developed in Bosnia is well known globally, and it is used, for Katrina, for tsunami, for atrocity in general, whether it is produced by political violence or natural causes. It's well known in these expert circles as the Bosnian technology, and in this cutting-edge set of practices for the identification of missing persons through genetic testing, the so-called extracting, harvesting, these are the words used, extracting, harvesting, analyzing and matching DNA profiles. So it's usually, in the humanitarian context, from 9/11 to Iraq should not be developed. It was also used for 9/11. By developing forensic database management system, FDMS, as an electronic database of ICMP forensic science activities that tracks the process of exhumations and identifications from reconnaissance and exhumation to identification, notification and burial, you see this line, reconnaissance, exhumation, and then to identification, notification and then burial. We get, what is actually produced in this process is an electronic chain of custody from mass grave to mass grave, and all of this is indexed in the process in very formalized mathematical language through the so-called what we call matheme of association. Obviously using like monument group, so you can say that as matheme of association because it's a sequence of numbers and letters that every piece of forensic evidence gets, but it also gets a barcode, not just this matheme, but also everything is stamped. These blood and bone samples, they're all turned into barcodes, and there are quite a lot of these facilities. In Tuzla, actually the majority of ICMP facilities are in Tuzla, and the DNA lab is in Sarajevo, but the actual